We're on page 38. We're going to finish up two of these graphs on page 38 using the same process that we did on page 37. So you're going to have to refer back to page 37 to look at the steps for graphing these quadratic functions. So it's in standard form. That's nice. First thing we're going to do is identify A, B, and C. So A is 1, B is positive 4, and C is positive 5. That's good. Second thing we did was calculate or identify the axis of symmetry, the line where it cuts through either the x or y axis, and in this case, we're only calculating the x. So our formula was x is equal to the negative opposite of b, over 2 times a. So that is opposite of 4 is negative 4. 2 times 1 is 2. And so our x value is going to equal to negative 2. So we can go ahead and draw our axis of symmetry through negative 2 as it chops through the x-axis right at negative 2. So that's our first piece of our graph that we can actually graph. The third thing we're going to do is find the y value. What is the function? What is the y value when x is negative 2? And to do that, we need to go back up to our original equation. So we're going to be careful with these negative signs. Negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 plus 5. So that becomes a positive 4 minus 8 plus 5. And we end up with negative 4 plus 5 is 1. So our point, I'm going to do this in a different color. Our point is negative 2, 1. And we can go over here and we can plot negative 2, 1, and that is our vertex. So write vertex for the first thing that we plotted. It was the first point we plotted, and it also, of course, happens to be the vertex. Now we're going to go and we are going to find the y-intercept. We are going to let x be 0, and we are going to find what y is when x is 0. Again, we go back to the original equation. So when f is 0, when x is 0, we plug in a 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 5. That's pretty easy. F of 0 is 5. So our point, second point, is 0, 5. So we go over 0, stay here, up 5. Now we're going to pick a point on the x-axis that's in between the vertex and the 5 that we've already identified. And I think the logical point to me is negative 1, because it's the only whole integer in between 0 and negative 2. So the third point that I'm going to choose is finding f of negative 1. What is the y value when x is negative 1? So this is negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1 plus 5. Again, watching the signs carefully. And if you come up with some kind of funky points on your graph and it's not going to make a parabola, you need to go back and check your arithmetic, because that's probably the culprit. So this is going to be negative 1 squared is 1 minus 4 plus 5. So 1 minus 4 is minus 3 plus 5 is 2. So our point, our third point, is going to be minus 1. That was our x. And the calculated value for y is 2. So I'm going to go plot that, minus 1, 2. Now I've got one part of my parabola identified, and I can do points on the other side of the axis of symmetry that are equidistant away. So this guy is 1 unit away, so I'll put a point over here that's 1 unit away. This guy is 5 is 2 units away, so I'm going to go over here to the axis of symmetry, and I'm going to find one that's 2 units away. So now you can see I've got my U. My vertex is going to be a low point. I can actually go ahead and draw it. If you can draw it better than me, it's going to look like that. Of course, it is going to have arrows on both ends. And let's move on and quickly do the next example. So I don't know if you want to try this on your own, if you want to pause the video and see if you can do this on your own and then come back and listen and see if you've done it correctly or not. I'm going to run through the same steps that I did before. I'm going to identify my A, B, and C. A is -1. B is -4. And you notice that we don't use C in our formula, but if you had to identify C, it would be 0. You could just say this is plus a ghostly 0 up there. The second step is the axis of symmetry. We're going to find the line as our next step, and that is the formula. Did I write it up here? Yeah, right here. Minus B, the opposite of B over 2A. So X is equal to minus B, opposite of B, over 2A, which is 4 over -2, because B was -4. Kind of move my screen here. So X is going to equal -2. So we can go over and we can draw our axis of symmetry, lightly sketch it in, this dotted line cutting right through the x-axis at -2, and we can move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is going to be to determine what the vertex is. So the vertex is going to use this guy right here. It's going to say, okay, what is the y value when x is -2? So this is, you have to be really careful. I've kind of written over my original function, but you can see yours on your paper. So this is going to be -2 squared -4 times -2. Now, there's a lot of places to make a mistake here, so please spread your work out and look closely. You're going to do this exponent first. So -2 squared is +4, but this negative sign turns it back negative again. A minus times a minus is a positive, and we end up with 4 as our answer. And our point on our graph is going to be the x value was -2, and the y we just calculated is 4. So if you go plot that, -2, 4 is right there. Now at this point, we don't know whether that's the vertex, but we don't know whether this guy's going to open up or whether he's going to open down. That's what our next points are going to help us determine. So we've got to go get a second point, and that's going to be the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, that is what is y when x is 0. So that's going to be pretty easy. -0 squared -4 times 0, that equals 0. So our point here is going to be the x is 0 and the y is also 0. So that's right there. Now, if this is the vertex and this is the point on the parabola, you know that this guy's going to open down, because this can't be the low point if you've got something lower. So this is our vertex, and this is your first hint that we're going to have a downward facing parabola. But we got to go get another point. So our next point is going to be something that's in between this point and this point on the x-axis, and it really only leaves us -1 as a choice. So I'm going to figure out what is the y value when x is -1. I need a little bit more room. So again, I'm being real careful when I plug this in. It's -1 squared -4 times -1. -1 squared is positive, and the negative in front turns it negative, and this is positive, and we get 3. So our third point is -1 +3. So we go over here, -1 +3, and this looks pretty good. So I think I've done my arithmetic okay, and now I'm just going to go on the other side of my axis of symmetry, and I'm going to fill in the other points on the other side. 1 unit away, there it is. This is 2 units away, there it is. And now you can sketch your downward facing parabola. Okay, see you in class.